What's going on, everyone? It's Phil from Earth Nails and Tails, and today I'm at my friend Caleb's house to present to you something really fun that we've been working on, and I know that you're all going to enjoy. We just finished building his brand new chicken coop and duck coop, and we're going to show you everything that it took in order to build this egg-laying dream home. So Caleb and his wife wound up picking up a couple ducks before they even had a chicken coop or a chicken run or a duck coop, and it actually makes for a pretty interesting story. But he requested my help with about 4 years of chicken raising experience in order to help him come over here and design and build a duck coop. So at first we weren't planning on making the chicken coop either, but I think along the process they decided to get chickens as well, and hence the dream house was born. And now that everything is built, I want to show you some of the design details that we put into building these coops that I've learned from my 4 years of experience that make his duck coop and chicken coop the poultry paradise. First off, you can see that we built a beautiful enclosure for them. As of right now, they've got 2 runner ducks and 4 chickens, and behind me there's got to be at least 1,000 square feet of space, maybe even more, and that's plenty of room for these chickens and these ducks. But when you're designing your own chicken coop, one thing that you really want to keep in mind is the ability for them to have a space to run and forage. And for chickens, you need to have at least 10 square feet for every single bird in their run space in order to provide them that privilege. Some of the key things about the enclosure is that you want them to have plenty of shade. And you can see that there is trees everywhere covering this enclosure. There's lots of shade, and this is going to be absolutely perfect for your chickens and your ducks. Over here right now we've got a little makeshift pond, which is perfectly fine for the ducks because all they want to do is dip their head in water. But eventually they're going to be going ahead and installing a larger pool or pond for them here, which is going to look absolutely awesome. That's something that we're going to continue to work on together because we want to make a really nice plumbing system that's going to make it super easy to clean out. And you can see tucked in the corner back here underneath the shade, we have the duck coop and the chicken coop. So it really is a perfect spot for them, and I think they're going to absolutely love living here. Let's start with the duck coop because this is really where this whole project started, and most of this is actually built out of pallets. We've got a pallet on the bottom and a pallet in the back, which make up the main structure of this coop, and then we wound up getting some T11 siding to just finish up the rest of the walls. We've got a nice waterproof roof, which is really important. We've got lots of great ventilation around the coop. Their door that they're going to come in and out of, and then on the other side we've got our access door to make cleaning that much easier. One thing that I've learned from my experience is that you want to make any of your coops super easy to clean. So one really cool feature that we added is putting some vinyl sheeting on the bottom. Literally, you're just gonna have to take your brush, stick it in there, and everything's gonna pull out. It's gonna make it so much easier to clean. Inside of the coop, it's very, very simple. Unlike chickens, ducks actually don't need any nesting boxes. They're just gonna come here and find a nice corner, and that's where they're gonna nest up and lay their eggs. But one thing you do want to consider is having the proper amount of square footage inside of the coop, and that's about 4 square feet for every single duck that you want to keep inside. All in all, creating this duck coop was actually pretty simple. It's basically a glorified doghouse. Next, I want to talk about the chicken coop. And looking at it, I think the design that we came up with came out super, super nice. And there are specific design features that we did include in this chicken coop that I have learned over my years of experience. Just like the duck coop, we utilize pallets, and for this time we used it on the bottom in order to create the floor of the chicken coop. And we're going to be doing that, or elevating the flooring of the coop or the pallet itself, using these 4x4s, which we've cut into 2-foot heights. So we're basically going to make 6 pillars, and we're going to sit the pallet on top of that. That's going to create the main structure of the coop for us to continue to build on top of. And we shored some things up on the bottom just to make sure that the whole structure was rigid with some 2x4s. And then we put some underlayment here to make the floor of the chicken coop. At the end of the day, we're going to be putting up a 5-foot wall right here and a 4-foot wall over here. So just like we have this roof slanting down on this side, this roof is going to be slanting down the other direction. So it's going to make a really cool structure when it's all said and done. Now we're going to be putting the roof rafters on, and we want to make sure that they're spaced appropriately in order to support the corrugated plastic that we have for the roofing. So they've got to be no more than 2 feet apart. With the walls framed and the roof on, It was finally time to seal things up with some T11 siding and then add in some special features. One of the first things that you probably see here are the nesting boxes, and they're on the outside of the chicken run, so it's really nice for you to be able to just walk up and open up the nesting boxes, grab those eggs, close them up, and carry on. When the siding was installed, we were sure to frame a hole with 2x4s specifically for mounting the nesting box. The floor and sides are built out of pieces of exterior plywood and screwed into the framing of the wall, and then we added some hinges and latches to the front of the box for access doors. When you're designing your nesting boxes, ideally you want to have at least one nesting box for every 3 chickens that you have. And another thing is you want to design for the square footage on the inside. Most chickens like a nesting box that's 12 inches by 12 inches by 12 inches or 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot. The back of the nesting boxes are a foot tall, and closer to where it attaches to the coop itself is about 18 inches, so that we have a nice slope for the roof, and that's going to shed any water when it rains. On the top of the chicken coop, we've got hardware cloth, and this is for permanent ventilation. One thing that you want to consider when you're designing your ventilation is ideally have it the same square footage as the amount of floor space. This is going to ensure that there's enough airflow going through the coop in order to maintain the temperature on the inside. We were working out here during those hot summer days, and we were actually seeking refuge inside of the chicken coop because it's cooler in there than it was outside. So we know that the airflow in here is absolutely perfect to keep our chickens happy. Where we live in Virginia, we have relatively mild winters, so we're not gonna have to close this up during the winter time. It's gonna stay warm enough in order to keep the chickens happy. But if you do live in a colder climate, you might want to design this so that way you can actually close these up during those really cold winter days and have the ability to open them up on those hot summer days. You can add some hinges and latches like we have on our nesting boxes right here, throw them up on the ventilation, and that'll work perfectly. So the next thing that you're probably noticing is this enclosed space underneath the chicken coop. And I'm sure pretty much every single chicken coop that you've seen, especially if it has an attached enclosed run, is going to have an enclosure underneath the coop in order for the chickens to go under and do all of their scratching and foraging. Even though we have an enclosure behind us, we still provided this space for them because it's going to be somewhere that they're familiar with and they can go to get out of that hot sun, or even if they spot a predator in the sky, they can go under there for their protection. And as a bonus, it just so happens that they have excellent soil under here because they've got all of these trees that just have been raining leaves that have building up over the years. And the soil under there is absolutely excellent for the chickens to go under and enjoy a dust bath. So whether you have an enclosure or not, there are tons of great reasons why you should be providing your chickens an enclosure underneath of their chicken coop. Similar to the duck coop, we have a huge access door on this side of the chicken coop, which is going to make maintenance really simple. We've got the nesting boxes all the way in the back, then we have 2 sets of roosts for the chickens to sleep on. Notice when you're looking in here, you can see that the roosts are slightly higher than the nesting boxes in the very back. Got these 2x right here, and I'm gonna lay them on their sides like this. And I've got them to span the whole width of the chicken coop here. One thing that you really want to remember when you're installing your chickens' roosts is that they need to be higher than their nesting boxes. Chickens naturally want to roost as high as they can possibly be. So we've got a lot of headspace here. We've got great ventilation up top, but I want to keep them from their heads touching the ceiling as well. What you need to do is have them about 2 feet below the roof and above the nesting boxes here. So I know that we've got the nesting boxes about 18 inches above the floor, and that's going to provoke them to go in and use the nesting box in order to lay rather than picking out somewhere out in the yard. They're going to feel nice and safe in here, and they want to be nice and safe when they're laying. I'm going to make my roost bottoms about 20 inches, so that way they'll prefer to use the roost when they sleep rather than sleeping in the nesting box, which you don't want because they're going to do a lot of their pooping when they're sleeping. And if they're sleeping in their nesting boxes, then your nesting boxes are going to be full of poop, and it's just going to be nasty to clean out all the time. Knowing these little tiny details and design factors is going to make your chicken keeping experience so much easier. After seeing the chicken coop or the duck coop, if you have an interest in building either one of these designs, definitely let us know in the comments below, and I'll consider, depending on how many requests we get, creating DIY instructions for both of these coops right here. Well, that's going to sum everything up for today's video. And Caleb, I just wanted to say thanks for involving me in this process. It was a lot of fun over these last 4 weeks, coming out here, designing, building, hanging out, learning more about one another. I think it was a really enjoyable experience, and I can't wait to do it again for the next adventure that we undertake. Again, my name is Phil from Earth, Nails, and Tales, and if you enjoy this video and you love seeing this build, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.